Hey guys, welcome to the 8th video of Linux interview question and answer series. Today, before moving forward, I just want to give a short introduction about myself. I am a Red Hat certified engineer and a Red Hat certified system administrator, working as a senior system engineer. I had uploaded 50 questions earlier for Linux interview, which had a very good response, and all the comment were to make videos with the answer. So I have successfully created 7 videos and this is the 8th video. If you haven't watched earlier 7 videos, I will put the link into the description. You can go and watch them. And if you like the video, click the like button, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get more videos. Because your support will motivate me to make more videos. I'll be coming up with new videos very often. Also, I will be discussing different technologies, so don't miss them. Alright, without further ado, let's get directly into our first slide. And the first question is, what is XINetD and TCP wrapper? XINetD, the Extended Internet Daemon, is an open source daemon which runs on many Linux and Unix systems and manages internet-based connectivity. It offers a more secure extension to the version of inetd. Inetd was used for internet-based connectivity, but extended internet-based daemon is used for more secure extension and the connectivity. XINetD performs the same function as inetd. It starts program that provide internet services. You just have to remember XINetD start programs that provide internet services. This is what you have to keep in your mind. Instead of having servers started at system initialization time and be dormant until a connection request arrives, XINetD is the only daemon process started and it listens on all service ports for the services listed in its configuration file. When a request comes in, okay, XINetD starts the appropriate server. Because of the way it operates, XINetD is also referred to a super server. Below are the important configuration files for XINetD, that is etc xinetd.conf, the global XINetD configuration file, etc xinetd.d directory, the directory containing all service specific files such as FTP. The use of TCP wrapper does not eliminate the need for a properly configured firewall. You can think of this tool as a host-based access control list and not as the ultimate security measure for your system. By using a firewall and TCP wrapper instead of favoring one over the other, you will make sure that your server is not left with a single point of failure. Understand the use of host.allow and host.deny files. Yes, we are talking about TCP wrapper and these are the two files that are most important. When a network request reaches your server, what TCP wrapper does? It uses host.allow and host.deny to determine if the client should be allowed to a given service. Below is an example for the files etc host.allow and etc host.deny. If you can see, here we are allowing SSH and FTP access only to this particular given IP, that is 192.168.0.102, and localhost, and deny all others. So what we will do is, in the etc host.deny we will mention SSHD, VSFTPD, the daemons for these services is all, then all comma all colon all, and the following line in the etc host.allow. What we will say is SSHD and VSFTPD should be only allowed to the IPs coming from this IP. Okay, coming to the next question. What is KVM or virtualization? Kernel based virtual machine is an open source virtualization technology built in Linux. Specifically, KVM lets you turn Linux into a hypervisor. So you just have to remember that KVM lets you turn your Linux into a hypervisor that allows a host machine to run multiple isolated virtual environment that can be called as guest or virtual machine. So KVM is a part of Linux. If you have got Linux 2.6.20 or newer, you have got KVM. KVM is a part of existing Linux code. It immediately benefits from every new Linux feature, fix and advancement without additional engineering. KVM converts Linux into a type 1 bare metal hypervisor. Hypervisor need some operating system level components such as memory manager, process scheduler, input output stack, device drivers, security manager, a network stack, and more to run VMs. So what does the KVM do? KVM has all these components because it's a part of the Linux kernel. Every VM is implemented as a regular Linux process, scheduled by the standard Linux scheduler with dedicated virtual hardware like a network card, graphic adapter, CPU, memory, and disk. So, implementing KVM on a supported Linux distribution like Red Hat Enterprise Linux, what it does is it expands KVM's capabilities and letting you swap resources among guests, share common libraries, optimize system performance, and a lot more. So coming to the next question, and that is what is grub boot configuration? Grub is a bootloader designed to boot a wide range of operating systems from a wide range of file systems. Grub is becoming popular due to the increasing number of possible root file system that Linux can reside upon. Grub is documented in a GNU into file. Type info grub to view the documentation. The grub configuration file is /boot/grub menu.list. Some distribution use another configuration file, but for example, Red Hat Linux uses boot grub grub.conf. Grub configuration files are interpreted. Syntax error will not be detected until the machine is rebooted. So take care not to make typing errors. Edit the grub configuration file and remove any splash image entries. If these entries are not removed, grub 0.90 behave very oddly, transferring control between the serial console and the attached monitor and keyboard. If there is not already a password command in the grub configuration file, then create a password with the help of this command, that is md5 crypt. You will get a password, and that encrypted password you have to put in the configuration file. Okay, use this. The password will be somewhat what you can see in front of the encrypted written over here. So you can use such type of encrypted password in the grub configuration file. This is how we set a grub password. Coming to our next question, and that is what is the difference between TCP and UDP? TCP is nothing but the transmission control protocol. UDP is user datagram protocol or universal datagram protocol. Transmission control protocol is a connection oriented protocol. User datagram protocol is a connectionless protocol. As a message makes its way across the internet from one computer to another, this is connection based. And UDP is also a protocol used in message transport or transfer. This is not connection based, which means that one program can send a load of packets to another, and that would be the end of a relationship. TCP is suited for applications that require high reliability and transmission time is relatively less critical. UDP is suitable for applications that need fast, efficient transmission such as games, and also you can consider an example that is of live TV, live telecast, where we use UDP. TCP rearranges data packets in the order specified. UDP has no inherent orders as all packets are independent of each other. If ordering is required, it has to be managed by the application layer. The speed for TCP is slower than UDP. It is slow because every packet sent from the TCP protocol, it needs the acknowledgement whether the packet has received or not. But this is not the same with UDP. UDP is faster because error recovery is not attempted. It is a best effort protocol. There is absolute guarantee that the data transfer remains intact and arrives in the same order in which it was sent. When it comes to UDP, there is no guarantee that the message or packet sent would reach at all. When it comes to the header size of TCP, it is 20 bytes and the header size of UDP is 8 bytes. TCP does error checking and error recovery. UDP does error checking but simply discards erroneous packets. And as I have told you earlier, acknowledgement segments are always received when a packet is sent, but here with UDP there is no acknowledgement. Whether the packet is sent or received, there is no acknowledgement. Coming to the last question of the video, and that is, what is IP routing, HA proxy and load balancing for used for? The design of IP routing allows for very simple route definition for small networks while not hindering the flexibility of routing in complex environments. A key concept in IP routing is that the ability to define what addresses are locally reachable as opposed to not directly known destination. Every IP capable host knows about at least 3 classes of destination, and that is itself, locally connected computers and elsewhere. Most fully featured IP aware network operating systems, all Unix like operating systems with IP stacks, modern Macintoshes and modern Windows include support for the loopback device and IP. Linux system can communicate over IP and any locally configured IP address, whether on the loopback device or not. This is the first class of destinations, locally hosted addresses. The second class of IP addresses are addresses in the locally connected network segment. Each machine with a connection to an IP network can reach a subset of the entire IP space on its directly connected network interface. All other host or destination IP fall into a third range. HA proxy. What is HA proxy? HA proxy is a very fast and reliable solution for high availability load balancing. It supports TCP and HTTP based application, and today most of the websites need 99.99% uptime for their site, which is not at all possible with single server setup. Then we need some high availability environment that can easily manage with single server failure. The load balancer is a set of integrated software components that provide for balancing IP traffic across a set of real servers. And it consists of two main technologies to monitor cluster members and cluster services, that is Keep Alive and HA proxy. Keep Alive uses Linux virtual server to perform load balancing and failover tasks on the active and passive routers, while HA proxy performs load balancing and high availability services to TCP and HTTP applications. I know these topics are little complex as compared to the earlier topics, but you can stop the video, you can note the points, and you can understand the bullet points, and accordingly you can tell or you can interact with the interviewer. My aim is to keep the video short so that it is less time consuming and include a lot of information into these 8 to 10 slides. So as said earlier, if you like the video, click the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get more videos. And if you support me, and your support will definitely motivate me to make more videos. So guys, do subscribe and click the like button. Signing off as of now. See you in the next video. Till then, take care and bye bye.